Hey, shalom, shalom, Israel. All praise, honor, and glory, of course, to our Heavenly Father, Yahweh. We do so through His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai. Uh, coming back, man, with a quick, reaction video. Oh, Salaki. Come back with a quick reaction video, man, to this video that I had watched and had seen, and I really wanted to touch on this, man. Uh, just like slavery that happened in America, how it needs to be talked about. It's some important parts. I'm gonna give it a light, because I really liked it. But if you want on your own time and to watch this, by all means, please do. It's on ABC News. It was posted about 3 days ago, but I just seen it, just literally, just seen it and watched it, and it was some good information in there, man. It's called America 250th: How Slavery in Louisiana Shaped the Economic Foundation of the United States. Right? Don't want to waste no time. Let's jump into it, man.
Welcome back, everyone. As we mark our nation's 250th birthday, ABC News is tracking the American story to the Mississippi River, the economic engine of New Orleans and a focal point of the Louisiana Purchase. It's where our forefathers focused on westward expansion, but also a place of brutal realities of the slavery that powered a growing nation. Tonight, we go to the Whitney Plantation to learn more about the enslaved who fought for freedom, to confront hard truths, and examine generational resilience. If this land could speak, it would whisper the story of America.
And matter of fact, I want to touch on that real quick because the land does speak. You know what I'm saying? Let's go back for anybody that did not just hear what she said. If this land could speak, it would speak. Matter of fact, let me get her words real quick. I don't want to butcher the sister words. Go back a little couple seconds.
Speak, it would whisper the story, to confront hard truths and examine generational resilience. If this land could to confront hard truths and examine generational resilience. If this land could speak, it would whisper the story of America.
Right, this land does, whisper the story of America, right? Let's get this real quick in Genesis, with Cain and Abel, because the land does speak. You know what I'm saying? Let's get this in Genesis 4. Right, this is Genesis 4, and let's start at let's start verse 8. Genesis 4 and 8. It says, "And Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him." Right? If anybody's familiar with Cain and Abel, we see that Cain was jealous of Abel because he, did a sacrifice of righteousness, which is offering, blood atonement to the Lord, right? And Cain offered fruit, because we know that the law says all things are purged but by blood, right? So right here we see that Cain, killed his brother, man. And he said, "Why? What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground." Right. So all of our ancestors that have been killed, so like, is it better? Can you hear me now? Is it better? Elders, betters, or might take the headphones off. But you can see right here where blood cries to the Lord from the ground. So think about this. When this sister said that if the land could speak, it would whisper the story of America, she's kind of telling the truth, because why? Blood cry when somebody kills somebody, that blood cries from the ground. Asking the Lord to punish, the one that, shedded the blood. The same way how our ancestors were killed over here brutally. Just think about it. All that blood is crying to the Lord, asking the Most High God to take vengeance. Let's keep going.
Among the ancient oaks of the Whitney Plantation, just outside New Orleans, roots stretch deep beneath the soil, threads connecting centuries of memory, triumph, suffering, and survival. This is a city etched by history and carried by the currents of the Mississippi River. For generations, that river has flowed like a lifeline through a growing nation. All roads led to this river, and at its mouth, New Orleans, a port that helped transform a young republic into an economic power.
When Thomas Jefferson is thinking about how to expand the nation at the conclusion of the American Revolution, he's thinking westward. He's thinking about the land for the farms and how they will get their goods to market. That means the Mississippi River.
America may have not become a world power if not for one of the greatest real estate deals in history, the Louisiana Purchase. It doubled the size of America and gave us access to the vital Mississippi River.
New Orleans becomes so very critical to America's economic future by virtue of its geography. If we think of the Mississippi River as a highway, perhaps we can think of New Orleans, right, as a major intersection, right? For it really truly becomes America's on-ramp into the global market.
Every barrel of cotton, every shipment of sugar, every settler heading west moved along the Mississippi. And there was human cargo too.
Right. So the sisters talk about how when it was transporting all these different things down the Mississippi River, that there was also humans on that boat too. You know, this is something that a lot of our people try to avoid talking about, because especially one of the sisters, I'm not gonna spoil it, but she was going into basically like how a lot of people don't like teaching slavery because they don't want to offend white people and make them feel bad for what their ancestors did, you know. It's like you. And we got to talk about slavery because that's so true. You know, the Lord already said it, you know, that we would go into captivity on ships, you know, go back into Egypt on ships because, you know, just like majority of us, our ancestors don't like listening. You know, we hate instruction. We don't want to be corrected. And we just think that, you know, how the way we live in is okay. Well, whole time is wrong, right? This is Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. It says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, right? Egypt is significant with the house of bondage, captivity. So the Lord said he will bring his chosen people into slavery again with ships. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. That's why there was human cargo on them ships. They were just transporting people in the bottom of a ship, in the belly of a ship, you know. And, you know, it's sad. Don't get me wrong. It's sad. And something like that should never have happened. But it only happened because why? We don't like listening, you know. Slavery would never happen if we just if our ancestors and us just listen to the Most High. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you, right? So we can line up everything that happened to our ancestors with this Bible, right?
The Mississippi River is a site of both enormous wealth, more millionaires in this region than anywhere else in the United States at the time. But that wealth, of course, comes at an incredible price. So when we think about the Mississippi River and the cotton that it shipped up and down, it's not just cotton. Those ships are also carrying people.
We need to study, Louisiana in order to understand, modern day America. These are the children of Whitney who spent their childhood in slavery. Here we use those narratives, to tell the story of slavery. Of course, we have to tell the story of how Black people suffered in this country. Teach our children and grandchildren that the history of slavery is American history.
Right. And I have to totally agree, because we have to teach our children and our children after this, about the history that happened to us, man. Because a lot of people just they love to tap dance around what actually happened to our people in this place. Because a lot of our people today, when we talk to our people on the streets, it's just like they get scared to death when it comes to talking about what actually happened to our people. You see Jake get a little nervous when they see an Edomite, coming by. They'll be like, we'll be like, brother, who put us in slavery? And then you just start seeing them look around and see if a white person listening. They'll like quietly whisper, white people. And we be like, why are you whispering? Like, this is known in history of how the United States was started. The United States was started on bloodshed of our Native American brothers, and also the enslavement of, Negro slaves, man, and all this history needs to be talked about. It should not be avoided. It should not be swept under the rug. It shouldn't halt or, stop because an Edomite just walked by. Need to tell the truth, man.
And it is a history of civilization building.
Along this stretch of river known as the German coast, another chapter unfolded, one of resistance, of courage, of people willing to risk it all for freedom.
In 1811, the people who were enslaved in this area decided to create a fight for a free nation, for freedom. So they started marching downriver to storm the city of New Orleans, but they failed, and they had to pay the price.
But as if death were not enough, they had their heads cut off.
And in front of everybody, men, women, and children, they were shot.
To get some information on that topic. All right. It says the 1811 German Coast Uprising was the largest slave revolt in U.S. history, starting on January 8, 1811, between 200 to 500 enslaved individuals, led by Charles Deslandes, if I'm pronouncing it right, marched down the Mississippi River from present-day Laplace toward New Orleans. Though ultimately crushed by a militia and federal troops, it shook the institution of slavery, right? So you had these people that tried to revolt, and it ended up not working. I want to get some information on the people heads being cut off. Let's get that. Yeah, let's get this. It says the 1811 German Coast Uprising was the largest slave revolt in U.S. history from January 8th to the 10th. Hundreds of enslaved men marched down the Mississippi River towards New Orleans after being brutally suppressed by militia and federal troops. Planters executed dozens of rebels, mounting their severed heads on stakes along the river road, right? So when these people were killed, they cut their head off and put it on a stake and lined it up by a road, But if the video ever gets back playing, the woman was like, she never known none of this information in school, Think about it. How many of us learned that this people tried to revolt and then they ended up getting their head cut off and hung up?
1811, the people who were enslaved in this area decided to create a fight for a free nation, for freedom. So they started marching downriver to storm the city of New Orleans, but they failed, and they had to pay the price.
But as if death were not enough, they had their heads cut off.
And in front of everybody, men, women, and children, they were shot to death and then they were decapitated and the heads posted on poles.
This plantation woodland in Laplace is the origin site of the largest rebellion. The first blows of the revolution in 1811 started right next door in the room next to us. Our family has been here since this parish was formed for over 300 years.
The revolt of 1811, I don't remember learning about that in school or reading about it in the history books. How did you all hear about this?
I first heard about the revolt from my grandmother. My grandmother loved to tell us stories in the history of our area, and I remember her telling us some brief details about the revolution, particularly the heads that were placed on stakes and they were lined along the river.
And that was basically a message to the enslaved. If you want to try this, look at what happened to the last person.
At a plantation once worked by enslaved.
And then think about that. If it was a mess, you got to think about this. When our ancestors were brought over here, you know what I'm saying, they lost all sense of human rights, the ability to read and write. You know what I'm saying? We couldn't just do it. We couldn't just do whatever we wanted. You know what I'm saying? We were enslaved. We had to listen to some random person I never seen a day in my life tell me what to do, work me to death, whip me if I'm wrong, and all sorts of other things probably we don't even probably know. You know what I'm saying? And think about this. They cut off people's head, you know, to let them they cut off people's head and put it on a stake to let people know, the other slaves know, if you want to do something, you know, like this was gonna happen to you. You know, think about all that fear that they installed into our people. That's why our people think like the way they do today. Why do you think a lot of black people are still scared of master, or what we call, you know, Edomites today? Why do you think people still scared of their master? They scared to say the truth, because when you do something like that, it installs fear into them. They teach their kids, they teach their kids, they teach their kids. You know, but all praise to the Most High, He put His spirit back upon us, man. These dry bones live, and these dry bones gonna prophesy, man. You know, but I want to get a precept, man. It's in Second Maccabees, if I'm not mistaken. Let's get that. Let's get Second Maccabees. Let's see, where's that? Okay, I could have sworn I opened up the right tab, but not. Let's type it in real quick. Oh, slacky. Trying to type it in. Let's just open up a new tab because my computer's acting weird and I don't got time for this. Let's get Second Maccabees, chapter 6, if I'm not mistaken. Let's get Second Maccabees 6, and let's start at verse 12. All right, let's get Second Maccabees 6 and 12. Right, it's Second Maccabees 6 and 12. Now I beseech those that read this book that they be not discouraged for these calamities, but that those punishments not to be for destruction, but for a chastening of our nation, right? So when you're seeing all these things that's going on today or happened in the past with our people, you know, don't become discouraged when you hear about our people being enslaved, our people being killed, our people being hung, our people being, you know, burnt at the stake, skin wore as a purse, babies fed to alligator, boiled alive, all these different things. You know, don't look at it for, you know, discouragement, but look at it as a chastening of our nation, you know, because we made a covenant with the God of heaven saying that we're going to keep all your commandments, you know, but we didn't uphold our end of the contract. So we ended up catching the curses. It says, for it is a token of his great goodness when wicked doers are not suffered any long time, but for with punished. So, right. So the Most High God punished our people for the evil that we did. You know, we didn't keep the covenant, we didn't want to keep the commandments, so he ended up, you know, putting us in captivity, you know, and all these things are still even leading up to 2026. You know, it's not for to be discouraged upon, it's, look upon his token of his goodness that he's punishing us, that he's getting us in order. So when he sends his son, that he finds, the church, without spot and wrinkle and without blame, right? For not as with other nations, whom the Lord patiently forbear to punish, till they become to the fullness of their sins, so deals he with us, right? Because the Lord is going to get ready to punish these other nations, right? The Edomites, the so-called white race, the Arabs, the Ishmaelites, the Moabites, which is the Chinese. You got Ammon, the Japanese, and you got the sons of Ham. The Lord is ready to judge all these nations, So when he's dealing with us and when he's correcting us, don't get discouraged. Look at it as a blessing that he's dealing with us already, because other nations, the Lord ain't even punished them yet. He's getting ready to, but and also be grateful that the Lord made you his people. Let me get this in addition to Esther. We need to be grateful that you're an Israelite, because the Lord could have made you a Gentile. Let me get this addition to Esther. The Lord could have made you a Gentile and called it a day. He could have made you a Gentile and said, I'm going to punish him, right? Right? Let's get this. Additions to Esther 10:10. It says, therefore, he made 2 lots, one for the people of God and another for all the Gentiles, right? So when the Most High God made this world, he made a lot for his chosen people, the 12 tribes, and he made another lot for the Gentiles, meaning when you're put upon this earth, you're either 2 things. You're either the child of God, an Israelite, or you're a Gentile. A lot of our people are living like Gentiles, so they need to come back to the covenant, man. But let's get back to it.
Slave laborers, Joy and Joe Banner, twin sisters, now own the very land their ancestors were forced to work. The first black owners of this plantation, a remarkable reclaiming of history.
These were sugar fields?
This plantation and then another Laplace, which we're in the city of Laplace, is actually the footprint of the entire city.
Okay. So it went on.
Oh, it was everywhere around you would have been Andrew Plantation. If you ever heard of the terminology or the phrase to be sold down the river, that is specific to Louisiana, for enslaved being sold from north down the river to Louisiana, to this part of Louisiana.
But for the Banners, this land is not simply a reminder of the past, it's a promise for the future.
Why did you desire this land?
Oh, it's our land. It's not a desire. And we're 10th generation. So it's not a matter of like, why do you want to buy? Why do you want to live here? Just like the 1811, slave revolt participants, they fought back. We're going to fight back, and we are fighting back. We are winning these battles.
What would winning look like?
Sorry.
You're fine.
For me, it would be defining what our happiness is, and being able to be happy and to be healthy, and to be free, and to be not have the stress and the violence that is still on us in so many different ways from
And all that, this is our happiness. Let's get this in Revelation 2, right? Our happiness is gonna come when Yahweh Shai subdue all nations and make them, serve us, man. This Revelation 2:25, it says, but that which ye have already hold fast till I come. And he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations, right? Let's keep going. It says, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron, as the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I received of my Father, right? So that's what we're waiting on. That's our happiness when we finally see these nations on the bottom where they're supposed to be serving us. Our happiness is not trying to get some land in America and a donkey, You know, our happiness is not getting a a job that pays 25 an hour with a decent car and a decent house. That's not our happiness. Our happiness is getting what we deserve, you know, what we should have had from the beginning of time, which was ruin this planet Earth and righteousness. You know, that's our happiness. You know, our happiness is not, you know, in America, right? Let's keep going.
Defining what our happiness is, and being able to be happy and to be healthy, and to be free, and to be not have the stress and the violence that is still on us in so many different ways, from laws, from a system that continues to sacrifice us.
As the nation marks 250 years since its founding, questions remain about how the nation remembers its past. More than a century and a half ago, abolitionist Frederick Douglass stood before a nation celebrating its independence and asked a question that still echoes across the American landscape. What to the slave is the 4th of July? It was not a rejection of America's ideals, but a challenge to live up to them. Here, along the Mississippi, where fortunes were made and human lives were traded, that question feels as present as ever. What do you say to people who today say, you know, we don't need to teach our kids about slavery, and it only makes white people, white students, white children feel bad about their...
And they should feel bad. You know what I'm saying? Just me just speaking as a fool. They should feel bad, you know, because, you know, they have been taught that, you know, what they did is okay. You know, what they did was fine. I know they killed our ancestors. Just forget about it. You know, God loves them. God loves all, which is a lie, because the Lord only loves his people, you know. But they should feel bad for the things that they did. You like when your parents punish you for something that you did, you feel bad. It's the same way. You know, these people should feel bad for what their ancestors did, you know. That's why, you know, they're gonna come down very low, you know, especially that parable what the Lord said about Lazarus and the rich man, you know, very symbolic, man, towards Israel and, you know, and Esau and these other nations, man.
Their history and their own ancestors.
And why teach any American history? Why you cannot learn American history. You cannot tell the story of America without the history of slavery. If you are teaching, you think you're teaching.
And then you got, I'm sorry, last time pause, but you got a lot of simple-minded jakes to be like, oh, this ain't never happened. Slavery never happened. That all that's fake, bro. You are a complete idiot if you think that slavery never actually happened. These are real photograph pictures of our ancestors sitting in a hot field, working themselves to death for free. Look at it today. Look, I'm gonna give you a modern day concept of how we're still enslaved. Look at that. You got one white man right there, one white man right there, and look at all these Negroes working. Look at jobs today. You got a white manager reigning over black Negroes that's working hard as a slave for little to no, for still little to barely surviving pay. You know what I'm saying? It's the same way. You go into a warehouse today, you see Negroes working themselves to death while the white boss sits in the office all day and sucks up AC, man. You know, while you out there enslaving yourself for your family to provide, to be a man, you know. But, you know, I digress, man.
Teaching American history and it does not have slavery in it, that's not history you're teaching. You're teaching a fantasy, right? You're teaching some fake nostalgia, but it's not American history.
They built it with their own hands. They had the skills. My main concern is about education. There is no shame teaching the people the real history. And it's only with education and the understanding of the past that we can solve the problems we are facing today. hidden history hurts. We have so much knowledge about slavery in this country. We need to take advantage of that body of knowledge. We have to teach the topic of slavery or the history of civilization. It can take us very, very far to understand American culture.
As this country prepares to remember and celebrate, in some cases, 250 years on July 4th, what are your thoughts?
We have to let everybody know what this country owes to Africans and their descendants. Enslaved Africans and their descendants built the foundation of the economy of the whole country. And not only they built the foundation of the economy of this country, but also they contributed to defining its culture. And I call it a true story of glory. And they did all of that despite all the mistreatment, all the hardship, without any kind of recognition. So these are true heroes, and we need to celebrate them.
Right. So that's the end of the video. But to correct the elder, we are not Africans. You know, we were living among the sons of Ham. Let me get this the Bible dictionary. Let's see. Yeah, let's get this. Right. The Zondervan Bible Dictionary. Let's get this. It says Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of the 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races, meaning, you know, the people that occupy Africa, not the Negroes. So that racist claim to say that all dark-skinned people descend from Ham, that's a racist, you know, claim. We are not Africans. You know, it says the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites, those are the sons of Ham. And they have descendants. When you read Genesis 10, the genealogy of Ham, you see all these different tribes that come from Ham. We are not one of the sons of Ham. We come from Shem. We come from a man named Abraham. We come from a man named Isaac and a man named Jacob. That's who Negroes go back to, because right here it says, if Ham was the father of dark races, but not the Negroes, who are we? Right? That's what every Black American that calls themselves a Negro should be asking themselves. You know, that's what every Hispanic, Latino, and Native American should be asking themselves. Who do I descend from? Where does my ancestry go back to? Because far beyond the modern day terms of what they gave us, we should really look at the Bible and be like, you know, everybody came from one of Noah's 3 sons, you know, from Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Because let me get this in Ecclesiastes 4. Because these people that descended from these people in ancient times are still here today. Just like Esau got kids, because people love saying, oh, Esau and his children are no longer here. That's a lie. They still walking the earth just like Jake walking the earth, you know, the 12 tribes, right? This is Ecclesiastes 4, verse 15. I consider all the living which walk under the sun, with the second child thou shalt stand up in his stead. There is no end of all the people, even of all that have been before them, right? They also that come after shall not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and vexation of spirit, right? So everybody comes from somebody in this Bible, you know. That's why you need to be searching these things out, you know. But with that, digress. Pray, Lord willing, that you learned something. You know, it was even informational for me. All praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh by Shem Yahushai. For anybody, you know what I'm saying, that missed it, you know, rewind to the beginning. If it goes in and out, that's not your, you know, internet connection. That was mine. Apologize for that. But call me a shop.